Thank you. Good afternoon, dear guests, dear journalists, and thank you for this opportunity to have a conversation. I wish good health to all of you. It's not the high time to congratulate everyone with the feasts still. Today is the Easter, and even the aggression of the Russian Federation won't prevent us from canceling this holiday. That's why I would like to wish all of you and all of the citizens of Ukraine, I would like to wish peace and victory, and we will have a victory. And today we have a meeting in a very interesting format. The press service reported that there are a lot of requests, hundreds and thousands of requests for interviews, and unfortunately I won't be able to find the time to talk to every one of you separately. But maybe after the victory, we'll have more time for interviews, for conversations. Now the time is very precious for our country, so I'm ready to have this press conference. So yours the questions and ours the answers. So let's start. So colleagues, please raise your tables. Luke, Guardian, please.
But wait for the microphone, please. Everybody, wait for the microphone.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. We've recently seen rather strange photos from Moscow of Russia's President Vladimir Putin holding the table. Can you explain why President Putin invaded Ukraine? Is he ill? Is he mad? Or is there some other reason?
Well, it's hard to assess and evaluate every step made by the president of Russia. It's hard for me to tell why is he grasping the table or the armchair for the past years. I don't think this is anyhow related to making a decision on committing an aggression against Russia to hold this encroaching aggression against Ukraine, which is happening day after day and year after year, and because we know that this war has been in progress for over 8 years, and we don't want to get used to this encroaching invasion, but unfortunately this is happening. And thinking on the impact, I think it is an impact on Ukraine, and Russian Federation has always wanted to have something like this happening, and frankly speaking, we are repelling this sort of impact or attempt of influencing our country, and we are succeeding. And since the very beginning of our independence, it was only the people of Ukraine who dreamed of this independence. For us, it was important. For the civilized world, it was important, and we can see that based on the support that we are receiving from the friendly nations. Still, the Russian Federation, both at the level of authorities and the level of people, because of the informational policy, and a lot of the society in Russia do not consider Ukraine as an independent country. Well, they don't think that our people have the right to to an independence, don't have the right to leave. And we are struggling for this right to leave, and therefore we are struggling for independence, for our freedom. This is the war for the freedom of Ukraine. The channel Inter, that's the 5th row. Please, the microphone. President, you've insisted on having a meeting with President Putin. Do you still insist on a personal meeting with him? Do you think this meeting may stop the war? How? And why Russia is not agreeing to have this meeting. What's your suggestion? Now, the security component in the frames of the information that were attempts of killing you, that has to be a third country? I'm sorry, what is this? That meeting has to be on the territory of a neutral country. Do you understand the risks that you're facing personally? Well, thank you for this question, or indeed questions. Speaking on the Russian Federation and the negotiations with Russia, from the very beginning I have insisted on the talks with the leader of the Russian Federation, as I believe that any formats of meetings through mediators with Russia or passing this or that information to the leader of Russian Federation through the friendly nations, I think this will not produce the desired effect. I believe this war could only be stopped by the person who started this war. Can you hear us? That's the last train, hopefully not the last train. It's just the final one for today, so let's listen to the subway. So that's partially an answer to you to this question with regards to attempts of killing me. I'm not afraid, but my security is afraid of those attempts. My family is afraid of those attempts of killing me. Now, talking about this meeting with the President Putin, I want the war to be stopped. And there is a diplomatic path, there is a military path. And any person in sound mind would always opt for a diplomatic path, because this person would know that even if it's difficult, but still, the diplomatic path would allow to save hundreds of thousands or even millions of lives. And this is not something that I would willing to have. And any leader, despite his own willingness or desires, has no right to take a decision to not proceed with the diplomatic path. He should proceed with the diplomatic path, and we've constantly made steps with regards to the diplomatic settlement of the military conflict and the war with Russian Federation and our partners, both European partners and the United States and Canada. Now, all of them, they can see that whatever Russia is saying over those past years, claiming that it's Ukraine that is not willing to sit at the negotiation table. Now, everyone can see that there's this accumulating effect. Now, everyone can see that they should trust Ukraine, and there is absolutely no trust to Russia. And the Russia and the trust, they are absolutely difficult words, because whenever they're saying something, it's not the correct information. That's the security issues. I don't remember the second part of the question. I'm not afraid of having a meeting with President Putin if we're talking about the attempts to kill me. Let's just wait for a second. I don't have a right to be afraid of. Our people have showed that they are afraid of nothing. Well, they are afraid of their children, but still they stopped the Russian tanks with their bare hands. And just the same as our armed forces and our National Guard personnel, there's a lot of security issues. But anyway, now you're sure that you are in safety. So the normal leader, ordinary leader, has no right to be afraid when the question has to do with our country, with our independence. Now, CGTN, if I pronounce that correctly, the fourth row, please.
CGTN. Mr. President, you've reiterated your readiness for peace talks with Russia. We know that UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is visiting Moscow and Kiev. We also noticed some reports talking about the US and its allies have centered on the weapons, how to ship the weapons to your country. But at the same time, we know that Moscow thinks that your continuous appeal for military support from NATO countries would not be helpful for the negotiations. Can you comment on that? Thanks.
I'm sorry, can you please repeat the beginning of your question?
The start of it.
From the very beginning, if you can.
Sure, of course. I think you were talking about your readiness for peace talks with Russia. We know that UN Secretary General is coming to Moscow and Kiev to promote the ceasefire or peace. At the same time, we know some reports talking about the US, its allies, have centered on weapons, how to ship the weapons to your country. And Moscow thinks that your continuous appeal for military support from NATO countries is adding fuel to the fire and can be seen as a deterrent to negotiations. Can you comment on this? Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for this question. First of all, we'll be welcoming the Secretary General, who will arrive to Kiev. We'll have negotiations. I believe that we have made a lot of steps to change even his position, to have his position being reinforced with regards to the support to Ukraine. I had a number of personal meetings with him, and I told him that you can't have a balance in between of your relations with Ukraine and Russia. We expect 100% support from the Secretary General of UN, because we are the righteous. It is on our territory that the war is coming. If the Secretary General of the UN will have a time, he would definitely need to visit some of these settlements where the tortures were happening, where our people were being killed. And only then the Secretary General would need to find the time to be spent in Moscow. I believe that it's more important to understand what is happening in Ukraine in order to have all the arguments while having conversations in Moscow. Because if you simply arrive to Kiev just to talk, this is not enough. I believe that first and foremost, one would need to understand what is happening in Kiev. That's why many leaders, both the Chancellor of Austria, I always suggested them, whenever they would be going to Moscow, they would need to first come to Kiev, if that's not about political tourism, if that's about the support, the true support. And maybe if he would be able to see that, then his points with regards to Russia and Ukraine would be more reinforced. Speaking about the supply of weapons to Ukraine, we are definitely not interested in the thoughts of Russian Federation. In the beginning of the war, they've also supplied this. You remember the beginning of their aggression, they were on the retreat and they left a lot of tanks behind themselves, so I'm grateful for them to that. Now, and there, please, somewhere in the end, in the final rows, Volodymyr Alexandrovich, in just a couple of days, on the 27th of April, Russia has announced their plans on conducting referenda in Kherson. And based on the experience of 2014, how it all happened in Donbas, it doesn't matter how many people will come, they will draw any result they want. What the Ukraine would do if this pseudo-referenda will be conducted, if they will proclaim the establishment establishment of the Kherson's People Republic. What this would mean for our negotiations, because the people in Kherson, they are pro-Ukrainian, and they don't understand what Ukraine will do after this situation. Thank you for this question.
Якщо будуть знищені
If
наші люди в Маріуполі,
our people
якщо буде
in Mariupol will be
проголошено
killed,
референдум,
if the
псевдореферендум в
will
нових
be a
псевдореспубліках,
pseudo-referenda on
Україна
the
вийде з
establishment of
будь-яких
new
перемовних
pseudo-people's republic, Ukraine will not continue
але люди
negotiating.
наші, які знаходяться на тимчасово окупованих
But
територіях
our
Херсоні,
citizens
я ще раз
located on the
підкреслю,
temporarily occupied
не
territories
тільки
of
в
the
Херсонській
Kherson
області, там багато
region, but
містечок і в
in many
Запорізькій
other
області, на
settlements
жаль,
in the
і на
Zaporizhia
сході
region
держави
and in the east of
повинні
Ukraine,
знати і
they
повинні
have
не
to know,
допомагати
and
окупантам.
they should
Я про це
not
звертався до
assist
нашого народу. Ми
the
знаємо,
occupying
завдяки нашій
forces.
розвідці і
And
завдяки
I
людям
know because of the
звичайним, які живуть,
intelligence and
які
because of ordinary
я не
people
можу так казати,
who live
що вони
there.
мають проукраїнську
I can't
позицію. Вони
say
мають
that they have
українську позицію.
pro-Ukrainian
Саме
position.
такі
They have a
українці, вони
Ukrainian
передають
position.
такі факти, як
These
ходять,
are the
обговорюють,
Ukrainians who are
по
passing the
квартирах, вони ходять,
facts.
збирають
They
ті
are
чи інші
gathering
дані.
these or that
Я вважаю,
data.
що це не на
And
користь
I believe this
дипломатичному врегулюванню цієї
This would
ситуації.
definitely not
Це точно
facilitate the
завадить
diplomatic
закінченню
settlement of this
війни.
conflict. This would definitely prevent
Дипломатичним шляхом.
this
Це
war
точно
from stopping in
неправильний
diplomatic
крок з
way.
боку
This is definitely
Росії.
the wrong
Це
step
говорить про те,
made
що
by the Russia.
все, що було до
This
цього,
means
всі
that
ці
everything that
зустрічі
was before
дипломатичних
that,
груп,
all
все
those
це
meetings of the
фікція.
diplomatic
І такий політичний театр з, до
groups or
речі, з
teams is
дуже
just a
поганими
fiction.
акторами.
And this is just a theater with very bad actors.
Будь ласка, Імеді, да?
Okay, now Imedi from Georgia, if I pronounce that correctly, from the fourth row, please.
Mr. President, as a citizen of Georgia and as a journalist, of course, I want to tell you thank you because we Georgians believe that your struggle is our struggle and your victory will be the most valuable for our region to be the democracy. Now I want to ask you, also here our soldiers died the land of Ukraine for our democracy. How you see, what is your view of this thinking, our perspective in European Union, how you see friendship of Georgia, and also Georgian people very worried about the, some details. When will be possible to return ambassador of Ukraine in Georgia, because mostly who really want not be a friend is Russia, you know. Thank you. Immediately, Manana Gabelia.
Да. Дякую за
Well,
запитання.
thank you for the question.
Від дружньої Грузії.
Well, from the friendly
Я вважаю,
Georgia,
що
I
дійсно один
believe
з самих близьких
that,
народів до України, до українського народу,
one
саме
of the
грузинський народ.
closest
І це
are the
починаючи
people of Georgia to the people
історично
of
і
Ukraine. That's
починаючи з першої
historically.
революції ми бачили
That's from the
таку
very
велику
first
підтримку.
revolution that we saw the
І,
great
ви
support from
знаєте,
the
і
Georgian
зараз
people. And
навіть,
even now,
коли ми не
when
зрозуміли, скажу вам відверто. І,
didn't
в
understand, and
принципі,
frankly speaking,
я можу бути відвертим
and I believe that I can be
з
talking
грузинами,
frank
тому що ми дійсно
to
братські
the
народи.
Georgians because we are truly
І я
brothering
дійсно не розумію
people, brothering
позицію
nations, and I
лідерів
truly
вашої
don't
держави.
understand the positions
Так, я
of
не
the
розумію, і
leaders
тому я
of
так
your country.
боляче
I do not understand
це
this position.
сприймаю.
It was
І я вважаю,
something
що це того не варто.
that
те, на
felt
що вони
very
йдуть.
painful, and
Запровадження
what they're
санкцій,
doing
це
is
копійки
not worth it.
в
I mean,
історії
not imposing
двох
the
держав,
sanctions. These are just
В історії такого
minor
сусідства, незважаючи
issues.
на кількість кілометрів, ми сусіди.
Despite the
Ми набагато
kilometers, the
ближче,
distance in
ніж ми
between
з
of us,
Росією. Ви
we
бачите,
are
у
close
нас з Росією
neighbors. We are
війна.
closer
І ми точно не
than
хочемо жодних
with
конфліктів з
Russia,
Грузією. І
and we don't
впевнений,
want
що
to have any
їх
conflicts
ніколи не
with Georgia.
буде.
And
І як
I'm
Грузія
sure and
вийшла
confident there
зараз,
will never
як
be a
вона
conflict in
вийшла
between
на
our
вулиці,
nations. And when
як вийшов
Georgian
весь
people went
Тбілісі, як
on
він
their streets, when the
підтримував.
whole
І я
people of
звертався, і наші люди
Tbilisi went on
зверталися,
the
і як
streets,
ваші
when I
люди
called,
приїхали
when your
сюди,
people
і
called
віддаючи життя
for
своє,
the response,
воювали,
and some of
підтримували,
your people
гуманітарно
gave their
допомагали,
lives, and
волонтери,
they
і
provided support.
багато-багато
There were
всього за всі ці
were a lot
роки.
of
Ще раз, починаючи
volunteers
з
over the
революції,
past
закінчуючи
years, starting with the
початком
revolution
війни
and
ще з 14-го року.
the beginning of war in 2014, but I cannot understand the behavior. I'm not a teacher, and your leaders are not pupils. They are adult people. And I don't understand what is the reason. Not implementing the sanctions, I've heard messages like that we have to protect our economy. What economy? They've taken part of the territory of Georgia. They've reached almost the borders of Tbilisi. What economy are you talking about?
So I do think, and but I'm really sure. I'm sure. Yeah, please, please. Exactly.
We speak very loudly in political fields, in everywhere, in NATO, in European Union, also in every groups. My question is about the ambassador in Georgia, and also how you see our perspective in European Union together.
Ви повинні бачити свою
You must see your own perspective in the European Union. You must see it, observe it. I know that people want, they do want. But this is life. I'm pretty sure that you will be there in the European Union, a part of the family, or in the NATO where you want to. It's your decision. It's up to you. And Ukraine will always respect your choice. Always. I can tell it clearly for behalf of all of us. But your answers are inside your country. That's how it seems to me. Speaking about the returning the ambassador, well, we will definitely bring the ambassador back to friendly Georgia. When we feel the support provided to Ukraine by the leaders of your government. By your leaders. Thank you.
Дякую. CNN, будь ласка.
Thank you. We have CNN.
П'ятий ряд.
Fifth row, I guess. The left side.
Mr. President, Phil Black from CNN. Could you please give us your assessment of Russia's plans, but also its capabilities for its operations in the east, in the Donbass? Will Russia, or perhaps more importantly, can Russia launch a large-scale push to break through your defensive lines, or is this looming as a slower, longer, grinding military operation? And secondly, do you believe your allies are finally getting the message? Are they sending you the heavy weapons you need? Thank you.
Дуже дякую.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
По-перше, хочу
First of all,
привести приклад
I'd like to give you an example of Kiev, yes, and Kiev region. Let's use it as an example, which had been occupied, and they almost reached Kiev, the very brink of Kiev. We had so many battles close to Kiev, but we deoccupied the territory, we freed the territory. My position, my personal position, my human position, and position of a president, everything that they will try to break. And if they, God forbid, occupy something, we'll bring it back. It will be not a matter of 10 years or 20 years, not a war like we have it starting from 2014. We have this war for 8 years. Concerning the armament, if we have it, if we have enough of it, we will return it immediately. We will take our territories back immediately, the temporarily occupied ones. This is the war that we have right now in Ukraine. This is the situation in the eastern regions, in Kharkiv region. Every day we can unfortunately give, due to the capacity of certain Russian groups, we can give a piece of territory, but during the night time, on the next day, we bring it back, small towns, small villages, and we move forward. We don't move forward in the places where we can't, where we simply have no support that we talk about. We've been talking so long about this support, and we talk about this support in public for quite a long time. We present it everywhere. And with non-public channels, just to be frank, we also use the non-public channels. I'm speaking frankly, but we see the change. We see this change regarding our Western partners. We can see the shift. Especially, I can see the change in the speed of response, especially the U.S. response. And if this speed will grow, just like they promise us, if they do it like they promise, if their steps will coincide the words like any decent person should, then yes. And for any leader, that's important to be a decent person. And then we will do it faster. We will free our territories in eastern regions. At any moment, something may happen like you mentioned. For example, in Mariupol right now, at this specific moment, at this second, they're under siege. It's one of the hardest days today. The preparation, they shoot from the sea. You know, we have the shell fire on the land, everywhere, tanks, artillery systems, everything they can use, jets. You know, I had the last message, like they want to prepare such, an hour ago I got the last message from the guys who stay there. I know what they are planning to do, and I know, but when we will be able to go there, we will be there. But so far, we offer again, like any civilized person should, we offer the humanitarian solution, purely humanitarian solution for this issue. Exchange, we offer to exchange civilians in Mariupol, take them back, to exchange for injured people, for wounded. We don't offer the deceased. Unfortunately, we have people who died there, but they left their people. They left Russians there, but we want to bring our killed people out of there. We don't want to leave our people. And of course, exchange of military, protecting Mariupol. We are ready for it as well. We offered that. And why, for example, why I had this very sharp response provided at the press conference, like the Russia told something like the ball is on your side, or something like the sentence. This is not true. Again, I want to underline, we offered any kind of format of exchange to get our people out of there, staying in this hell, in this monstrous situation, in such a bloody, in such a, in a sea of blood. And you know, and when the president of Russian Federation recently, I was shown his message, like he gives the conference that the only fortress left, but we will not attack. And after this, in 2 hours, an air raid. Oh. So the question is, it's about pragmatic dialogue. It's not about trust, it's pragmatic dialogue. Thank you. Thank you. RBK, the third row, please. I'm presenting RBK Ukraine. So, Mr. President, I have 2 questions. First is more precise. Well, concerning the aggressor's requirements and demands. So, up to now, at this moment, what are the key requests? What they want to get? Like, okay, recognizing these fake entities at Donbass, whatever. Maybe they already refused from something during the hostilities because they failed humanitarian issues or language, what they call like denazification. I don't know what that is actually. What is the pool of requests and requirements? The second is more general question. Regardless of how the events take place, like let's say within the nearest days or weeks, you as a president, how do you think? Are Ukrainian people ready to live in years or decades in this state like the Israeli people live? A militarist country where children have their algebra lesson, then they study how to handle the rifle, so where everyone have to actually take a couple of years of military service. Are Ukrainians ready to exist like this? As we have this threat from the Russian Federation. Sorry for that long question. I'll start from the second part. Thank you. So look, this is not an issue of are you ready or not. I think all Ukrainians, especially all of those who are in the country, who are staying right now physically, I'm not mentioning women and children who left. We have even some men who appear to be a little bit more feminine than they should have. So the majority of Ukrainians, our people, more than 90%, I tell about it. I'm so happy that we have such a state. I'm flattered with it. They're not just ready or not ready. We have no other choice. We will be this state. We will become it. Already are becoming it. We have become it. I can tell you. We already are there. We are the state that you mentioned. We are the state. We have to know, and we know that we have to defend our land, and we will defend it. It doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean that we will dive into hostilities. When we finally win, we will be the state with the best army, the most experienced one, people who are very well experienced, in how to protect themselves. We will be one of the strongest nations in Europe. Again, not because we are so special or unique, but I do think that we are special. But this is subjective opinion again. This is my personal opinion. But because we have no other choice. This is the reality we wake up in. This is the reality that we live in. We have the neighbor, that's it. So this is the second part. The first part, regarding the requests and demands from Russian Federation, well, first, as we know from the media and thanks, let's say, thanks to other institutions, so we've got some ultimatums, some very sharp requests, not about negotiations, but pure demands. Okay, they say Ukraine has to or is obliged to. It's not about dialogue. So first it was like a very, very clear demand, an order, and then the text started changing, the wording was changed, and then they saw that we are united, the state is united. We demonstrated our unity from the very first days of war. They saw it, they observed it. And in a couple of days we saw that this ultimate request, we saw this in their messages from Russian Federation. Some pieces vanished out of that. Then the negotiations of the subgroups started, and then they reached, we all know what they managed to reach. So there was a note prepared in Turkey, and as far as I know, Russian Federation first positively responded to that note, to that document, and then inside the country, it was heavily criticized because it appeared to be that not only the government, well, the government actually brainwashed their people. The government didn't expect to get that kind of critique, because they have such a hatred to Ukraine, not just within the government, not just the leaders, but they nurtured their people to hate us. They made their people hating us, thanks to fully controlled by Kremlin, media fully controlled by Kremlin. And they were surprised so much later of how strong the hatred is to Ukrainians inside the Russian Federation. And I know that they provided certain messages, like the answers to our notes, to our documents, to our requests, and with these answers, our subgroups, they do work with it. Just to give a brief answer to your question, I do think that the most urgent issue is, of course, the guarantee of security and neutrality, the Donbass destiny and Crimea, of course. No more issues are there. No more issues exist. So everything else is purely just, it's just purely political. Thank you. IBC News in the very end, next to the Central Aisle, please.
Thank you for taking my question. My name is Marcus Moore. I'm with ABC News out of the United States. And you mentioned your openness to meeting with Vladimir Putin. If you could speak to him right now, what would you tell him? And my second question, in reference to the military aid that you're getting from the United States, are you pleased with the equipment that you are getting, not only for the short term, but for the long term if this conflict drags on? Thank you.
Again, I want to tell how grateful we are, a profound gratitude. We are grateful for the support provided by two chambers and American chambers. We even get more than maybe. Well, we can't say no to anything we are provided. We speak about the best military support, and this is American support and British support. We have many other friends, European friends, but of course we recognize fully. I speak about the scope of this aid, and I'm fully grateful for it. Also, USA are the leaders. This is the country who is a leader, and they set the tone. They actually set the tone for any negotiation, and they set the tone for this dynamics of support, and they affect quite often. If any European country can provide armament, they actually can change the situation. This is a very important strategic partner, and I do believe in this strategic partnership, but I really want everything to go faster, to move faster. Concerning the politics, yes, they do support us, and personally, well, I will not reveal a big secret. I don't know if anybody knows. Well, tomorrow we are about to have some American people here. The Minister of Defense will be here, and the State Secretary of the United States of America, Mr. Blinken. I'll have a meeting with her, and they actually about to arrive. So we'll expect. We are waiting for the security situation to allow Mr. Biden to come as well, just to support Ukrainian people. Tomorrow we will have this conversation, and we'll talk about that armament list that we need, about the equipment that we need, and the terms of provision. Again, I want to underline, as I think, the last week signals, the messages from the last week, you know, the steps, the terms, the amount, the scope. I speak about military equipment and armament from the United States. It's improving, and it has improved. I'm so grateful for it. And this is something that we really expect to get, something that we want. We really want to have, of course, we have wonderful soldiers, but we want to have this heavy armament and strong armament. Azerbaijani journalist, please, the second row. Please take a microphone. So, Azerbaijan Baku TV agency report. How would you evaluate the mediation of Turkey, the role of Turkey as a mediator in this process, in the negotiation process? And again, how do you evaluate the role of Azerbaijan in this situation, in this war? And before the war, your military always evaluated very highly the experience of our soldiers, of our military in the Karabakh war. So, can they use actually this experience in the Russian-Ukrainian war? And okay, let's just we do love Azerbaijan. Yeah, thank you. But let's just piece by piece, okay? You have so many questions, and I have a very small stomach anyway. Okay. Okay, let's just how would you evaluate how Turkey and Azerbaijan as mediators in the negotiation process? How do you evaluate Azerbaijan in this situation as a whole? Not negotiation, but I mean as a whole. The Russian-Ukrainian war and the negotiation process. And, okay, that takes time. So, before the war, your military highly appreciated the experience of Azerbaijani army during the Second Karabakh war. And now your army actually... Does your army use our experience while fighting with Russia? Yeah, okay, let's just limit ourselves to 3. And
Не одне питання, вже 3, давайте 4.
Okay, the very last one. How do you evaluate the role of Bayraktar in this war as a military equipment?
Роль Байрактара.
The Bayraktar's role. Okay.
У вас интересный вопрос.
You have very interesting questions, you know, very intriguing questions, I'd say. Thank you. Thank you so much for the questions. I'll do it like that. So how do I evaluate the mission of Turkey and Azerbaijan and their role in the negotiation process? Well, I'd be very frank. The dialogue with both presidents regarding the mediation, well, I had these dialogues with both of them. I had several, you know, moments. We have very good relations with Turkey and Azerbaijan both. I would separate this a little bit because in Turkey right now, well, we have these diplomatic missions taking place of our subgroups. I mean, Turkey shows and demonstrates that this country wants to be a leader among the countries stepping out with this mediation role. Turkey openly expresses its statement, gives a statement that it wants to be among the guarantors. We say it, yeah, the guarantors. The security guarantors. And I haven't received that message from Azerbaijan yet, but President Aliyev always supported Ukraine, I know it, and he supports us. We had humanitarian aid, medical support, and I think that it's okay, it's hard for me to use Russian, you know, that's, yeah, so from the Yeah, when we speak about weapons, I think that for Azerbaijan today it's really hard when it comes to provision of weapons. It's hard to support Ukraine. It's pretty clear. We can understand this because you have Nagorno Karabakh. You have this issue. It's still there. It's a very painful historical issue. I understand this, and I can tell you that this is one of not so many countries. I mean, Azerbaijan, we understand you. We actually understand what you're coming through, and we know what your experience is. And this neutrality balance, we don't understand it. I understand. Well, I know why. Because right now, the war may just explode and break out. I know. But we expect to get more. Someday we will stop understanding because we are coming through very complicated times. Every day, yes, every day, people dying. So you have to understand this. But with Azerbaijan, we have very good relations.
Now, the role of the Bayraktar UAVs. Bayraktar is our drones. And as you know, we have this joint production, and we already have some of the drones that were jointly produced. We're supplying the engines for the drones, and there's a lot of them. We are using these UAVs, but with all due respect to Bayraktars and any other military equipment, I need to honestly say that this is a different war, and I'll answer another question of yours about the experience. That's another war, that's a different one, and all the experts say that this is an incomparable war. It could not be compared to any single war in the 21st century. It couldn't be compared with the wars of the 1990s. It was nothing like that. These or that weapons or the drones, they can assist, but they have no impact on the final result, because the history of missiles, artillery, and air defense, this is what plays a crucial role. And not a single war that was waged by Russia on the territory of other independent countries, there was not the level of destruction that it caused in Ukraine. They've used so many heavy armament and equipment, and there was no tortures. There was no attempts of raping women. That was not something that had happened on the territory of Ukraine, and God hope it will not happen on the territory of other countries. And it happened so that it is for Ukraine to stop all this, and that is why your countries would need to help us more. Because remember, there's this saying, when they will finish with Ukrainians, if they will finish with Ukrainians, they will pick up someone else. 1+1, the fifth row, please. Volodymyr Alexandrovich, after a small break, I have to go back to the very important question. I'm sure that it's very painful to hear that the situation around the city of Mariupol, we've all seen the video from the basements of Azov Steel, where the children have stayed underground for 55 days. They are running out of food. The authorities considering a way of a military deblocking of the city. Is there any deadline? Because the people located in the Azov Steel, they're running out of weapons, ammunition, and food. So, as the Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the country, what would you be able to respond to that? Look, I'm not ready to tell you everything that I'm talking to them. As the President, as the Commander-in-Chief, and we have direct contact with the people on the ground. And I can tell you, these are our cities, these are our citizens. That's why we have all the right, all the moral right to use military efforts to deblock our cities. And we have high hope that we will be able to do that. Whether we are ready to do that now, no. Do not trust anyone about the military deblocking of Mariupol. We're not preparing that at this moment. and those soldiers that are defending that part of the Mariupol city, the Azov Steel, who are blocked in there, the leaders, the commanders, they clearly understand this. That's a reality.
Можемо далі. Да, будь ласка,
Proceed.
Sky News.
Sky News, please, of the fourth row.
Oh, sorry. Deborah Haynes from Sky News. You said that you're willing to speak with Vladimir Putin if there's a chance to find a diplomatic path to peace. But given all that your country has been through, would you ultimately like to see Vladimir Putin before a war crimes tribunal? And given that you've got the US Defense Secretary coming into town on Sunday and the Secretary of State, and you've talked about the importance of weapons from the US and the UK coming quickly, can you, speaking frankly, set out the danger for Ukraine if your allies, like the UK, like the US, stop sending weapons so fast? Is there a chance that Russia will take land and seize and hold land in the east, in the south, and maybe even come back to Kiev?
Щодо зустрічі з президентом Російської
Speaking
Федерації, сказав, я хочу, я не
about
хочу, я
the
мушу.
meeting with the President
Я мушу
Putin, you said
зустрічатись
that
з президентом, якщо ми
expressed willingness. It's
плануємо
not that
в дипломатичному
I'm expressing the
шляху
willingness. It's that
вирішити
I
це
need
питання.
to have this
Щодо
meeting
того,
should
чи
we
я
are
хочу,
willing
щоб
to
всі
have a
пристали,
diplomatic
що
settlement.
пристав
Speaking
лідер
about
Росії, я
this
вважаю, що
war crime
не
tribunal,
хочу, а всі
it's
точно
not that
пристануть перед
I'm
трибуналом,
willing,
перед судом,
it's
всі, хто
all
віддавав
of them
ці
will
накази,
face
ганебні накази щодо
war crime
знищення
tribunal. All
людей,
those who
дітей,
issued
всіх.
orders to
Це точно, я
murder
в цьому
children,
впевнений, я в це
women,
вірю.
everyone. I'm
Вірю, ми
confident
знаємо, як
in
іде
that. I
міжнародний
believe
процес,
in that.
як
We
іде
know how the
міжнародний
international
суд,
process
як це буває. Це
is
буває
having. We
роки.
know how the international
Роки.
criminal court
Ми
is
почекаємо.
having his sessions. It
Ми
takes years, but we will
почекаємо.
wait.
А якщо такі, як я, не
And if
дочекаються, то наші
those like
діти
me will
точно
not
дочекаються. Повірте,
will
я впевнений,
face
що
that,
буде
then our
останній
children
цвях
will
в
wait
політику
for that, will
цієї
face it.
держави.
That will be a
Що
final
стосується
nail in the policy of that country. Speaking about
я не
the
розглядаю варіант,
Look,
що
I'm not
наші
considering
партнери
an option
нам не
that
передадуть
our
ту зброю,
partners would
яку
not
вони
be
пообіцяли.
providing us the weapons that they've promised
не
about.
розглядаю
This
такі
is not
варіанти.
something that I'm considering.
У них немає альтернативи.
There's no
Ми не дамо
alternatives.
їм
We
цієї можливості.
will
У
not
нас
give them
немає
this
інших
opportunity. We
шансів,
don't have
аби
other
відвоювати
chances
свою
but
землю. У нас
to
просто
re-
немає, тому що
but to
інший
liberate
шанс, якщо ви
our
про це говорите,
territories, 'cause
інше що? У нас не буде
There is
держави, не
no
буде
other
людей.
option. There would be no state
Все
of
буде
Ukraine. There would be
спалено.
no people of Ukraine.
Ось
Everything
це
will be burned
альтернатива.
down.
Я
That's
таку
the
альтернативу
alternative.
не розглядаю.
And I do not consider such alternative.
Дякую. Будь
Thank
ласка,
you. Now,
ТВП, так,
TVP,
в самому кінці
in the
ліворуч.
very end to the left. Good afternoon, dear President, and thank you for finding the time for us. I was asked by my friends from Poland to express all the best wishes from Poland. Everyone is supporting you from Poland. So the question from my friends of Polish people, we heard a lot that you are in Warsaw and Russians tried to persuade everyone that you are in Warsaw. Everyone was looking for you in Warsaw, but we are keeping to have this meeting in Kiev. So a question, would you like to come to Warsaw?
Ну, я уже майже... вам по-русски, да?
Okay,
Смотрите,
so
я
should
уже
I
60 дней
answer
слышу
to
этот
you in
вопрос. Не
Russian?
хотел бы ли я куда-то поехать?
Look, I kept receiving a lot of questions whether I would like to go somewhere. Like, I don't have a right.
При всем
And
уважении,
honestly
это
speaking,
действительно мое
I don't
большое
want.
уважение Польше,
And
вашим друзьям,
I highly
лидеру
respect
Польши,
Poland, your
людям Польши.
friends. I highly respect
2,5
the
миллиона
president of
принять
Poland and the
наших
people
людей.
of Poland.
Да,
You have
это огромная помощь.
welcomed, you
Это
have extended
особенное
hospitality to
отношение
over
одной
2.5
нации к
million
другой.
of
В сложные
Ukrainians.
моменты,
That's a special attention,
сложные
that's a
моменты
special
поступать
attitude
так.
of
Поэтому
helping
Польшу
the
можно
country
только
in
поблагодарить.
the
Они
time of
действительно
difficulties. So I would like to really extend the words of
безопасные и
gratitude
очень
because
дружественные
they
соседи
are
для
truly
Украины.
a
И
very
верю, что
friendly and safe
это
neighbors
будет
of
надолго
Ukraine,
и
and I'm
всерьез.
sure that this is for
Что
many years
касается,
and for
я
serious.
с
And,
уважением отношусь. Я приезжал к Анджею Дуде, мы с ним встречались и всегда с радостью.
Visited Poland many times. I've had meetings with the President Andrzej Duda. I'm always happy to visit Poland. And I'm not feeling myself as if I'm at home in Poland. I'm sorry for that. I only feel myself at home when I'm in Ukraine. But there's something that makes me feel very willing to go to Poland. That's this friendly attitude of Polish people to Ukraine. So I'm grateful for this support. It was not only the humanitarian support, and since the very beginning we had a very tight relationship with the President of Poland, both from the point of weapons, and he always supported us. Well, of course, a person like that, I cannot just say words of gratitude. I have to say something more, but there is always there is one thing that still raises in the air. There's this issue with the aircraft, but considering what Poland has already done for us, that's nothing really. I'm sure that until the war is in progress, I simply don't have the right to go to Poland. Republic India, that's in the center, please.
India, mention about the new world order. Mr. President, do you believe that the world order has changed? In the face of this kind of aggression, do you believe a new alliance of countries is needed?
Just wanted to ask you, what is it that you as the president of this country is expecting from the Asian countries? And was there any point in time in the first phase of the war that you felt let down by the Western partners?
Thank you.
Well, thank you for this questions. Now, speaking on the world order or the security infrastructure, I cannot have an impact on the alliance. We are not a member state of NATO, even though I believe that's a major mistake that NATO, over all these years, have not found the time and a place to have Ukraine as a member state. And everyone can see that we would be able to reinforce their capabilities. And everyone can already see that that would have a highly probable impact on Russia for not having this war. And I talked about this with the Secretary General of NATO, and I talked with the leaders of the major European countries. I'm not going to to name all those countries. We've only started this frank conversation maybe somewhere later, but in NATO, in the alliance, and in the European Union. And I believe that was a strategic mistake made by the alliance with regards to Ukraine. And nobody counted on our resilience and strength. Nobody believed that we will be able to defend for 3 days or more. Some leaders of the European countries were not willing to impose sanctions because they said there's no sense of imposing sanctions since they will be occupied in 3 days. So that was a mistake. That was a mistake at the level of attitude to this country. But through our unity, through our strength, through the repellment of Russian attacks, we've managed to change the attitude of the European countries of the alliance and many others. We've managed to change their attitude to us. And I want the Asian countries, I want them to change their attitude to Ukraine just to say whether I feel that they changed it. No. whether they've truly changed it. Well, people of those countries have truly changed their attitude. They know us. And I feel that the leaders of those countries are coming close to the change of their position. And historically, they were very close to the Soviet Union. And that's why historically, after the disbandment of the Soviet Union, they remained close to the Russian Federation as the inheritance of the Soviet Union and the largest country of the former Soviet Union. So they have this tight relationship. But Ukraine had them rethink that. And that's a great achievement of our country, but it's already an achievement of their leaders as they're listening to us. And it's a very difficult task. Both the Asian culture and the African culture, they were close to the Soviet Union culture, really. But there is an end to many things, and that's a partial answer to your first question with regards to the global security infrastructure. Now, all the leaders of the countries in Asia and Africa, they can see that not a single country can be allowed to violate the global order. You cannot take the territory of other countries. You cannot impose your own rules on the other countries and on the other continents. This could not be allowed. Now everyone is afraid of that. Now look at the challenge. Look at the challenge to the Asia, to the Arabic country about this blocking of supply of grain, barley, corn from Ukraine. I mean, we were the leading exporter of those of the agricultural products. 20 million tons, that's more than enough to support the Ukrainian market. And then there's 90 million of tons. This is something that is not being supplied to the other countries. And in some countries, there will be a deficit. In some countries, there will be a problem with the food supplies. Now, that's why everyone can see that the war in Ukraine, it's not only about Ukraine, but because of blocking the food products from being exported, this is not only a war in Europe, but a war in other continents because of these steps, because of disrespect to all the living. This is a disrespect to the international law and legislation of these countries because of these societies. They make the leaders start to listen. I'm sure that Prime Minister Modi, and I had a meeting with him once, and we had several conversations with him on the environmental forum, and I think I met him in Glasgow, and then we had a number of conversations over the phone, I think 2 conversations, and I truly feel that the people and the leaders, and I believe he is a true leader of the largest democratic country in the world. I believe that they can see that you need to fight for every step. You need to fight for the democracy. Now, Anadolu, in the very end, to the right. Thank you, Mr. President. What do you think? Would there be a chance to continue negotiations in Turkey? Oh, you're from Turkey. And you speak Russian. So, is there a chance that you continue negotiations in Turkey?
Well, I think it's the question to another Vladimir. I mean, Vladimir with another surname. So if he actually wishes, that Vladimir, if he wishes, everything depends on his wish. The meeting of our groups depends on his wish. Just meeting for the sake of meeting, we love Turkey, but it's war, and it's not about any kind of recreation or entertainment, and it's definitely not about visiting resorts, and we don't have that kind of mood. I'm sorry, you can see that even we have Easter today, but this is a big religious holiday, a huge family holiday. It's a humane holiday. It's like a humanity holiday. Seven missiles. 7. This is Easter time. 7 missiles we had today hitting Odessa, a big southern city, hitting Odessa. We hit 2. We managed to hit 2. What does it depend from? The air defense system. So 7 missiles. Residential area. They hit the residential area. The multi-storied block of apartments. A missile hit it, just imagine it. 8 people right now, right at this specific moment. 8 people died. 18 or 20 injured. A 3-month newborn child died. 3-month child. Just try to grasp it. 3 months old. When the war started, this child was a month old, and this child died. Just realize it, grasp it. Bastards. What I can say, these are just bloody bastards. I have no other words. I'm sorry, but bastards. Pure bastards. That's what they are. Monsters. We need to have these specific meetings. There is no satisfaction for us to stay there in the sun with these bastards. No, it's not. It's not pleasant. But we have to talk. We have to talk and finish the war. We have to talk till the very end of the war and grasp every chance, catch every chance that we have. I don't want any other 3-month-old dying. It's horrifying. It's just something you can't imagine. And within these days, just they don't care. They don't think of it. What do they talk about? They talk about God. They talk about values, about their Russian world, Christian world. I don't know. It's purely medieval. It's just 7 missiles for one city. Their favorite Odessa. Russians say they love Odessa. They call Odessa Mama, Odessa Mother. Like they say, you have wonderful cuisine in Odessa. We love to visit your city. They just want to have some food there. And that's it. Okay, let's move. I don't know how to spell it. Infobaya, Argentina. So the central aisle, 5th row, 6th.
Mr. President, I am Roman Lechman from Infobaya. Have you talked with Pope Francis, and what do you think about his role in the conflict? Thank you, Mr. President.
Дуже дякую.
Thank you. Thank you. We are grateful in general. We are grateful to Vatican. You know, when Pope Francis actually prays and gives statements, and everywhere he announces, and he not just during the special days, during the holidays, he always condemns Russian aggression. He stands against it, and I'm so grateful for this position. I met him personally. We had these talks with him, and at that moment I had a chance to tell him one story. It was a story about one of our military officers. It was Markiv. He helped us, and we brought our soldier back. We have to fight for each person. This is my rule, my personal rule of life. This is my motto. Fight for everyone. And I really wanted him to come from the very beginning. I just wanted him to support our people in eastern regions. I really wanted him to try to deblock the humanitarian corridors to Mariupol. That was the request that we gave him. We just wanted him to help us. And certain signals are there, but it's still early to say, but we expect to get him. We expect, of course, he has the mission. He has the mission from the God. He has a trust. He's entrusted by so many people. And I think it's important, I'm just sorry for using this word towards Vatican, but Ukraine has no choice. We have war. So we have to use, I'm sorry again for this word, I apologize, but we have to use.
Завдяки миру можемо дозволити собі. Тому нам треба
we have to
використовувати
use everything we
будь-яку
can
таку
use.
поважну
We have
людину,
to
яка має
use and
вплив
involve
щодо
any
припинення війни,
respectable and any high position person. We just need to get at least the ceasefire, the actual ceasefire, stable ceasefire. Just in eastern and southern regions, just to ensure that exchange of people is taking place. So we refer to everyone, to Vatican as well. Thank you. Rada channel in the right. Okay. So good evening, Mr. Zelenskyy. So we very carefully observe what the government is doing, and you announced that you created a national council, established a national council on Ukraine's refusal. What are the functions and authorities are there within this entity? Do you have any kind of list of people who will become the members of this national council? Representatives of government or the presidential office, who those will be. Thank you for the question. So it's a newly established entity, newly established institution, this council, and we have a list already of government representatives, also people from the office. Yes, I think this is not an exhaustive list. It will be extended. Why? Regarding the restoration and recovery of the country, the Ukrainian recovery program itself, it's established by us. I gave the details to European Union authorities about this program. Ursula von der Leyen supports this program completely. Sharon Michel supports it as well. I'll just tell about relations and later about the content. Apart from that, we also initiated these bilateral negotiations on Ukrainian recovery with the leaders of other countries like the Great Britain, Sweden, Spain, a couple of others. For example, the Great Britain already confirmed the support provided for this program. Also, Sweden said yes to involve. This is a separate leadership, this is a program to ensure the leadership for a specific region. For Ukrainian budget, it's impossible to help any city or region recover. I just really want our partners to help us to restore the country. But it's not just an issue of funds, it's not just about money. It's about the patronage, taking care of any town or city. So what is patronage? What do I mean? What is this format about? It's not about just providing money, but providing experts. For example, we're interested in finance experts, architects, artists. There are so many professions and so many people who will come to Ukraine and help us to rebuild. And each country will get its own region. For example, with the Great Britain, we've actually, with Mr. Johnson, he agreed actually to become a patron of the Kiev region, let's say in his country. With Sweden, we also negotiated. They would take Mykolaiv and Mykolaiv region to take care of, and step by step, we will actually distribute it. So, as my colleagues said, and colleagues from European Union, it's a very smart idea, they said. Why? Because we decided, it would be better to say people decided, and we just have to implement this. Ukraine is paving the way to European Union membership, and I do think that this way will do it faster if European Union countries will be united or joined under this umbrella, under this project. Each country will get an opportunity to help any region recover, and they will get the feeling of doing something truly important, helping the state to rebuild. And this will be a contribution in Ukrainian victory as well. And this will be a great contribution to the victory of democracy at European continent. So far it looks like this, and some specific details about the funds, the plans. Each region will present a plan for city and a plan for the region. And I do think that this project does have a great future. And I do think that all of us will definitely take part in that project. We will be the participants. We just need to find our own words. Well, it's not be I don't know how to call it. After when you finish your work, how you can start helping your city. Okay, let's the big cleaning, a big recovery. Okay. Antenna TV, if I do pronounce it, Greece, in the very, very rare. Okay, right part of the row.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Christos Mozanidis from Antenna Television Greece. The Russian Commander General Rastam Minakayev, if I say that right, told the defense industry meeting that Russia was seeking to win control of a swatch of territory extending to Moldova, Ukraine's southern neighbor. That would cut off Ukraine's access to the Black Sea. What is your understanding? And secondly, I want to ask you, according to the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry, Russian forces have illegally removed thousands of Ukrainian children from Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts to Russia. Do you have any number to give us and more information about this? Thank you.
Дуже дякую. На жаль, цифри.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, the figures are tragic. The statistics is horrible. I just want to apologize if these are not correct, and these can't be correct. They simply can't be correct, because regarding people who unfortunately died, we also have people who were tortured in the basements, and people buried, and also we have people who are deported. Nobody will give you the exact figure. No one. What we have is, we consider this to be approximately 500,000 of people were deported from various occupied parts of our country to the territory of Russian Federation, or partially to occupied East, let's call it. Occupied parts of Donetsk and Luhansk regions, 500,000. We consider this to be the figure. Concerning children, we don't have the number. I just remember one thing. Irina, how many? Like 5,000 approximately. 5,000. It's something that we had a week ago. I can't tell you the figure as of this day. I can't tell you if this is correct. Not fewer than 5,000. Why is it so tragic? Why my uncertainty is tragic? This can. We can have more. We can have 5,000 or more, unfortunately. And the second part, I just forgot.
Да, вони заявляли, я згадав.
Yes, they claimed, they claimed. I remember, they claimed, every day we have signals, we get signals from Russia, from Russian military leadership, about capturing, about their wish to capture certain territory. We heard about it for so many times, and the risks, yes, these risks exist. Yes, they have the wish. Concerning the result, we will see. We will definitely try to protect our territory, and we will protect it. Laseta, if I pronounce it, Italy, first or second row.
Дякую, Mr. President. Claudio Locatelli, Italy. So, in 2 days, in Italy will be the National Day of Resistance, remembering the historical resistance of partisans against the Nazi fascists. Some people think it's not comparable. Some others think it's actually your resistance, the Ukrainian people's resistance, is the nowadays resistance. Moreover, some people believe that in order to protect your citizen, you should give up, despite of the invasion of Russia. What is your answer to those people? Thank you.
Дуже дякую.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Українці не здаються.
Ukrainians don't give up.
Ми точно не здамося.
We won't. I think that we've already managed to prove it, not just with words or, statements, whatever. We proved it with every single day, every single step. Every pain we live, every fight we have against Russian Federation, this is pure, they are Nazi. They killed, they tortured, everything they did to children, you know it. Little children, toddlers, violence against children, children abuse, rapes, everything that happened. It's not just a manifestation. They are Nazi. And historically, their state, in the books and history, they will have the words that nobody invented. People just repeat it in Ukraine and in Europe. It's called racism or racists. Racists. like fascists, like Nazists, but racists. This is a new word. This is a new word. Meaning, these are Russian Nazi because they behave the same like Nazi did 80 years ago. Within these 80 years, if we do analyze it, if you actually try to look at the continent, what was happening, such barbaric behavior, it never happened. Racism, as we say, this will be there in history books, in Wikipedias or something. This will be carved in stone. This will be something that little children sitting in schools, they will learn, and they will give answers to their teachers what the racism is, when it started, in what country, and who won their freedom back, and who fought against this horrible thing. Thank you.
Al Jazeera English.
Al Jazeera English, so the central aisle, please.
President Hud Abdel Hamid from Al Jazeera English. We've been talking about the war in the East. Russia now is saying it has territorial ambitions all the way to Transnistria. I know you're satisfied with the military aid you're getting, but this is a huge area of operation for militarily speaking. Are you confident that you can tackle that you can avoid another Mariupol somewhere else where civilians and military are besieged? And are you able to also protect Odessa, which is so important for you and for the world because of the global food supplies? And then my second question is about war crimes. I know you talked very strongly about all what's been happening, and one can see that you're very affected of it. What kind of tribunal would you like? Would you like a special tribunal for Ukraine, or would you like to go through The Hague? What kind of mechanism do you see there?
I don't care how we will call the tribunal. I don't care about the name. I really want to get the result. And all of us, the citizens, we want to get the result. So it doesn't matter if it's Hague, or is it Ukraine, or if this is like any other process. Frankly, it's not the name. It's just about the years and people. How many people will get, how many of these people will get a specific number of years of imprisonment? That's what we care of, you know? It's about the second question. Frankly, our prosecutors, our Prosecutor General's office, they work with our European partners. They have very tight cooperation. They have investigative groups, joint groups, and we have some joint processes. I do think there will be an international tribunal. I consider, and we consider, that the result will be there. The process is ongoing. I can see a huge support in this area. And the prosecutor Han actually visited us, and so many other French experts. Recently, they visited us. I had a meeting with Mr. Sanchez, with the Spanish Prime Minister, and their specialists actually are involved. And so many European countries will be invited to take, but everyone wants to punish the criminals. Everybody knows who are the criminals. Regarding the Transnistria, so regarding Moldova, can we, God forbid, have the same tragedy like in Mariupol? Yes, it may happen. Thousands of tanks, thousands of APVs, a complicated situation, accumulation of Russian armament around the borders at our territory. Yes, they want to make this corridor. They want to just get some fresh water for the Crimea. They already have it. They already took all the territories, but they don't have water. It's not that simple. It's not just about getting a corridor. You just need to have a couple of more steps to be made. Yeah, all these risks are there. These are not vague, but I don't believe these people will stop. If we stop them, then we'll have negotiations. If we manage to strengthen our positions, then my position will strengthen in the negotiation process. But again, I just want to say one thing. You can't use power, I consider we proved it. You can't use force and inhumanity to win in Ukraine. You can't win. You can't. Just what will you do with Ukraine then? What? Why do you need it for after this? What could they do in Kiev region? People hate them. All of them. What could they do? Fascists, no, Nazi. What they did 80 years ago, they occupied Europe, and what? What did they do? What they managed to achieve? Even at that moment, when they were just drinking champagne in French restaurants, wherever, what did they do? People loved them. Not at all. They didn't. They became richer. No, yes, they stole a lot. They took, everything from museums, from palaces, whatever. What did they achieve?
All they've achieved is that many generations in Germany, the young people in Germany who have nothing to do with those events, they always feel that historically they have some sort of guilt. This is the thing that you can achieve. That is why I don't understand the reason. Why do you need yet another corridor, yet another country? They've taken Transnistria, they've taken Abkhazia. Is there Hong Kong over there? Is there Dubai over there? I don't know. What's the reason? What's so tractable? Who's happy in those territories?
Dark
Blooded, if I pronounce that correctly, from Sweden, by the central aisle. By the central aisle to the right. So please.
Thank you very much, President. You mentioned before with the rebuilding, in your speech to the Swedish Parliament, you reached out specifically to Sweden to be part of this, first of all, and I just wondered why Sweden in this? And the second one, given Sweden's status as a non-NATO country, do you ask something specifically from Sweden right now? And the third one, in your speech to the Parliament, you compared our flags, saying it is not coincidence but destiny that they have the same color. How do you see future relations between Ukraine and Sweden? Thank you.
I believe that we have a fairly good relationship, and I'm grateful to Sweden as they do support, they do provide us with assistance, not only through humanitarian assistance, they truly support us. I'm not ready to discuss all the details at this point. Why Sweden? We called upon many countries. You've asked why Sweden, don't you want to join the rebuilding process? Look, we do have a good relationship with Sweden, and it's not about the assistance of your country to Ukraine, it's about joint future. As I've said, this is a part of a big program that has to do with our membership in the European Union. That's our future in the joint victory, and that is why we are calling upon those countries whom we truly trust and respect, and that's why we've asked to Sweden. Speaking on the other types of assistance and support, I don't want to go into details. We're expecting the support, and it will arrive, and I'm grateful for that, and I know what I'm talking about. Now CBS to the right by the column, close to the central aisle.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chris Lipsey, CBS News. You've said that the Russian people need to learn their history and be made aware of how much they've made their neighbors suffer. How are they supposed to do that so long as Vladimir Putin is their president? And my second question is, how are you holding up personally?
Well,
Будь-яка людина, яка хоче знати правду, вона
Any
її
person
знайде.
who's willing to
Людина,
learn the
яка хоче
truth, they will
зрозуміти,
find
що
this
відбувається
truth.
навколо
People
світу,
who
не
want to
ховатись.
understand what's
Вона
happening around
знайде
their
всі
country,
ці
what's happening
відповіді.
in the world.
Ми це знаємо.
This person
Ми розвиваємось завжди,
can't find
коли ми
this information.
читаємо,
We
коли ми
are
вивчаємо,
developing
коли
whenever
ми
we are
шукаємо,
reading something,
коли
whenever
ми,
we are
коротше
learning something,
говорячи,
whenever we're
коли
searching
ми не
for
сидимо,
something.
розплющив
Well, let's
очі
say
тільки в
whenever we are
телебачення
not
російської
sitting
пропаганди,
on the sofa
а
and
потім,
just
коли
listening or
виключаємо,
watching to the
вмикаємо
TV
ці
or Russian
телевізори, виходимо на
propaganda. And
вулицю,
then when we switch
ми
on the TV,
заплющуємо ці
when we
очі. І так ми
go
живемо з заплющеними
outside,
очима,
and
ходимо
we
на
have
роботу,
our
ходимо
eyes
по території
closed, and
Росії,
whenever
того
we
чи
go
іншого
to
міста,
work, whenever
і
we are
розкриваємо
visiting any
очі
country or
тільки
any
і
city
вуха, і хочемо чути і
Russia,
бачити
whenever we
тільки,
can
коли
only
показують по
see
телевізору
and
те, що ми
only
хочемо чути і
hear
бачимо.
to
Так
what
не
is
вийде. Так не можна
provided on TV. This is not
просто
the right
розірвати
option. I mean,
цю інформаційну
you can't break
бульбу.
this
Просто це
information
неможливо
bubble.
пробитись через це.
You
З
can't
одного
break
боку, з
through
нашого
that
боку, з нашої
bubble
сторони, ми не
only from
можемо
our side.
тільки
I mean,
ми повинні йти назустріч один одному.
we have
І є в
to
російському
go
суспільстві такі люди. Їх
towards one
повинно
another.
становитись
There are
все більше
people in
і
the
ставатися
Russian
більше
society
і
who are
більше. І
willing to
вони,
have more
якщо вони
information,
хочуть
and there should be
дізнатися,
more and
вони
more of those
повинні
people. And if
прийняти
they're willing to learn
правду.
the true information, they
А
have
вона
to
є.
accept
Вони
that
знають, що вони
truth. And
живуть,
there is
і у
this
них
truth.
у
They
них на
know
вулицях їх міста
that
нікого не вбивають. Вони це
nobody's
бачать.
been
Вони
killed on
повинні
the
це
streets of their
сприйняти,
cities. They can see that.
сприйняти, що
They
вони
have to
винні, їх
understand
влада.
that they're guilty.
Вони обирали цю владу.
Their authorities are guilty.
Не
They've
можна сказати, я
elected
не при чому.
their authorities. They can't say that
Можна
I have
сказати,
nothing
що
to do
наша
with that.
держава винна.
Our
Можна
country
сказати, що я не
is
можу
guilty.
нічого
They
зробити,
can't
окрім
say
цих слів.
that
Я
they can't do
відчуваю
anything
себе
except for these words. And
громадянином
I
Росії. Я
feel
відчуваю, що
myself
ми за
as
це
the
будемо
Russian
відповідати.
citizen,
І
and
ми
I
несемо
feel that we
відповідальність. І
will
це дуже
be
багато.
responsible for that, that we take
Це
responsibility
дуже
for that.
багато
And that's
визнати.
already
Це
an
і є
important step. They have to
сміливість. Це
recognize
і є
this. That
міцність
this is the
людини.
bravery, this is the
Незважаючи, що
integrity
там
of a
тобі
person.
кидають в спину,
Despite
слова
whatever is
або
thrown at your
каміння.
back, either the words
Не
or
треба
the
цього
stones,
боятися.
you don't have to be afraid
Мені
of.
здається, це
And I
важливий
think
крок.
that's
І
an
він
important
називається
step to be
двома
made.
словами
And there's two
бажання
words to
людей.
describe it, the willingness of
Бажання.
people.
Тому відповідаючи на ваше
So
запитання, коли
answering your
їх люди
question, when
захотять,
their people would
захочуть
be
просто знати правду,
willing to learn
а
the
значить
truth,
вийти з цієї комп'ютерної гри
and it moves
в життя в
to
Російській Федерації.
exit that
Це
computer
комп'ютерна
game.
гра, це
I
віртуальність.
mean, living in Russia, it's like a
Віртуальна
computer
реальність,
game.
абсолютно.
It's a virtual
Вийти.
reality.
Просто
So when they
вийти.
press exit,
Зняти ці
when they
3D-окуляри
will remove those 3D glasses
трьох кольорів, просто
with three
зняти їх,
colors, when they will
повернутись в
take it
реальність,
away,
в
when
цивілізований
they will
світ. Він
go
прекрасний.
to reality, to the civilized
Він
world, it's beautiful,
прекрасний.
it's marvelous,
Він набагато ширше,
it's
красивіший,
much
тому що
wider,
він
it's much more
правдивий
beautiful
і
because
чесний.
it's truthful.
Не обов'язково бути лідером
You shouldn't be
в ядерній
like a
зброї.
leader in
Можна бути
nuclear
лідером серед
weapons. You can
країн, у
become
яких
a
більше
leader
всього
among the
айтішників.
countries with
Не
most
обов'язково
of
запустити
IT
ракету,
experts. You don't
замість того,
need
щоб
to
дати
launch a
заробітні плати
missile.
вчителям.
Instead, you can,
Можна,
pay salary to
напевно,
teachers.
працювати і знайти ліки від раку.
You can work, you can
Є
find a
куди
medicine for
витратити
cancer.
ці гроші і
There are
потенціал,
more areas where
тому
you
що там
can
талановиті
spend
люди.
your
Ми
money,
прекрасно
your
знаємо
potential. We know that they
історію, ми
have
прекрасно
talented
знаємо,
people.
там
We
є
know the
науковці,
history.
є
They
історичні,
have the
історична є
scientists and
науковці,
historically there
математики
are
тощо.
scientists, there are mathematicians, many
Тому є
others.
на що витрачати
So
цей
there
мозок
is
цих
what to
людей.
spend those brains for.
Є. Витрачати
Those,
в
the
нормальному
intellect
сенсі.
for. I mean,
Нехай не ображаються.
using in normal sense,
Тому що на нашій
no
території
offense,
вони саме
because on our
витрачають людей.
territory they
Кидають
are
їх.
losing their
Як?
people. They're just losing them.
Давайте далі.
Let's continue.
Давайте когось із
have
українців
someone
телеграфу
from
бачу
Ukraine,
так, по
Telegraph,
центру зали,
at the
ліворуч.
central aisle to the left, please. Greetings, President. The Telegraph publication. The Russian oligarch Abramovich has visited Kiev twice, according to mass media, and he met our representatives. Did you had a meeting with him, and has he have any role in negotiations?
Наскільки мені відомо,
Well,
а
according
мені
to my
відомо немало,
information, and I have a lot of information,
він входить в склад
he
російської
is
групи
a
перемог.
part of the Russian negotiating team.
Наскільки мені відомо,
And according to
він
my
був
information,
в Києві.
he was in Kiev,
Формат його
and the
зустрічі
format
я не
of his
готовий
meetings,
обговорювати.
this is something that I'm not ready to discuss right now. Thank
Будь
you.
ласка, Jewish
Now,
Chronicle,
Jewish
ось
Chronicle,
третій ряд.
this third row, please.
Aha, I see, yeah. Hi, John Sweeney from the Jewish Chronicle, taking on Putin podcast. We've all seen and admired Ukraine's heroic fights against what we've just got to call Russian fascism. But President Zelenskyy, what's your message to the Russian opposition, to the teenagers who go and make demonstrations and get beaten up by the Russian police in Moscow, by the man who took a copy of War and Peace and stood by the Kiev monuments in Red Square, and to Alexei Navalny? What's your message to the good people of Russia who are trying to oppose Vladimir Putin?
Дуже дякую. Для нас дуже важливий сигнал всім людям, які протистоять на всіх територіях всіх держав. І Росія не виключення. Саме до тих людей, які в Росії, їм ще складніше, ніж деяких європейських держав вийти на площу, тому що на площі тієї чи іншої цивілізованої держави тобі нічого не погрожує. Ця велика підтримка для нас важлива, але ти точно будеш жити за законом.
You will live by the law, and unless you are violating the law, you will remain a free person. Nobody will detain you, because you know that everyone is equal by the law, and all those people going on those streets and squares, there's not many people in Russia going out on those streets and squares, but by those examples, they add up the energy. And they let us believe that we will be able at certain point to break through that information bubble that we've recalled today several times. So I can say the words of gratitude to them, because we can see their words, we can see their actions, and if anything can break through that information bubble, that's the words, because the words hit hard. And that's why those people are behind the bars.
Такі слова, такі виходи на вулиці, ці кроки сильніші, тому що якщо вони були слабкіші за зброю, то їх би не забирали за грати. Їх бояться. Їх бояться. Уявіть собі, ядерна держава боїться саме свого ж народу, який виходить навіть поодинокі виходи на вулицю. Тому ми підтримуємо таких людей. Ми їм дуже вдячні. Я можу їм побажати в тій ситуації, я можу їм побажати тільки здоров'я, тому що я розумію, що з такими людьми роблять там за ґратами. Тому я їм бажаю відверто здоров'я і знати, що вони не просто так це зробили. Вони свій вклад щодо спасіння історії Російської Федерації, вони точно свій вклад зробили.
Я знаю, що багато японських журналістів.
I know that there are a lot of journalists from Japan. So now I'd like to have, if there are any journalists from Japan.
Так, Nikkei Asia, да, от бачу тепер, будь ласка, да, ваше
Nikkei
запитання.
Asia, please, now I can see you. You have a chance to ask your question.
It's about risk of Putin using a nuke. You, in some interview, talk about we have to prepare for the worst case scenario Putin used to nuke. What do you think, in what circumstance he's tempted to use nuke? Something like Ukraine repel more Russian occupation, he's cornered, then he's likely to use nuke. And second question is, some kind of concern is because of this war, a lot of country might tempted to have nuclear weapon. What do you think, what if Ukraine didn't give up nuke at the Budapest memorandum? Do you think this war didn't happen? Do you regret it about it?
Давайте так. Почнемо розбиратися з вашим питанням детально.
Have a detailed analysis of your question. Let's go step by step. First of all, I don't believe that anyone who's truly an adequate person can use a nuclear weapon. I think it's not that when the person is cornered, but when the person has no relation to reality, when the person is not in sound mind. Otherwise, you cannot justify the use of nuclear weapons. And if the leadership of the Russian Federation or still have at least some sort of connection to reality, they will not use the nuclear weapons. Now, this is also an answer to another part of your question, whether is this something that can happen on the part of Russian Federation? It can. It can happen. Whether I believe in that, well, it's not that I would really like to believe in things like that. But you can see my response to the second part of your question. I'm sure you understand. If we would have a nuclear weapons, of course, Ukraine would never use this. This is something that is utterly impossible because we are an adequate people. Any leader of our country who would be even starting to think like that, I mean, our people would crush him immediately. Our society would crush him. I would be the first one among others to run against that person. The only thing which is unjust is people somewhere deep in their soul, if they're considering they're capable of doing things like that, then there are people who think that there could be others who would be doing things like that. So I think if we would have nuclear weapons, then I think the risks of any aggression on the part of Russia would be reduced to minimum. That's what I believe. That's it. Now NBC at this center by the aisle.
Mr. President, Aaron McLaughlin, NBC News. With respect to tomorrow's visit from the U.S. Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense, why is it important for high-ranking U.S. officials to visit the Ukrainian capital? And what do you plan to tell them? Also, the Secretary of Defense is next expected to travel to Germany to meet with allies to discuss Ukraine's long and short-term security needs. What do you expect out of that meeting?
Я другу частину, вибачте, не почув вашого запитання. No, don't take it. I will tell you in English. I mean that the second part of your question, I didn't hear. Can you repeat, please? The second part.
Yeah, the Secretary of Defense is expected to travel, the U.S. Secretary of Defense is expected to then travel to Germany to meet with allies to discuss Ukraine's long-term and short-term security needs. What would you like to see out of that meeting?
Дуже дякую. Чому важливо, щоб до нас приїжджали лідери? Відповім вам прагматично, бо не можна сьогодні зараз до нас приїжджати з пустими руками. А ми очікуємо не просто презентів чи якихось там тортиків. Ми очікуємо конкретні речі і конкретну зброю. Тому я вважаю, що ми зможемо отримати від Сполучених Штатів домовленості або частину того пакету з озброєння України, про який ми домовлялися раніше. Тому я вважаю позитивним такий сигнал. Так само, як і лідери інших держав. Вони знають, скажу вам відверто також, про те, що ми обговорюємо тихо, як каже наші дипломати, є тиха дипломатія.
Silently a lot of things. There is this silent diplomacy. I don't really like it, but still.
Тому ми, в принципі, до всіх лідерів звертаємося,
we are calling upon all the leaders and
як вам сказати,
How would I
не
put
країна
it?
для
That we're
трагічних
not a
селфі.
country for tragic selfies.
У нас реальна війна,
We have
тому
a
приїжджайте
real
до нас.
war.
Ми з радістю
So please
вас будемо
come to
зустрічати,
Ukraine.
але
We would
приїжджайте,
be
будь
happy
ласка,
to
з тією
welcome you.
допомогою, про
But
яку ми
please
говорили,
come
і
and
яка
bring
у
this
вас є,
support
або у вас є ця можливість. Ми ніколи
since you
нічого
do
не
have
просимо
the
і не
possibilities. We
запитуємо
never
у тій
ask
чи іншій
and
державі,
we
якщо
never
знаємо, що у цій державі
call
цього
upon any
немає.
nation
Ніколи
for
не ставимо людей в
support.
таку
We
ситуацію
never ask if
неприємну,
we're not sure that this
Ми це
country has
прекрасно
it. We're
розуміємо.
not
Тому приїзд
creating any
Сполучених Штатів
uncomfortable
дуже важливий.
situation. That's
Окрім
why the
цього, у
visit
нас є
of United States
стратегічні
is very
питання щодо
important. We
гарантій
have
безпеки,
strategic
які
issues with
прийшов
regards
час
to
нам
the security
обговорювати вже
guarantees. And it's high
предметно,
time
тому
for
що
us
Сполучені
to have a
Штати
fruitful
буде
discussion on
однією
that
з тих
matter. Because
лідерів
United States
країн
would be one of
безпеки
the
для нашої
leaders, one of
держави.
the
До
security
речі,
guarantors for
чим
our
би
country.
все не закінчилось,
And,
і чим би і як би все
however
не
it would
закінчилось,
all end up,
гарантії безпеки нашої держави
the
потрібні.
security guarantees
І
are
ми
still
на цьому
necessary.
будемо наполягати.
And
І
we will
впевнений,
insist
що
on
ми в
that.
цьому питанні
And I'm
отримуємо
confident that we
очікуваний
will
результат.
receive an
Довгоочікуваний
expected result,
результат.
a
Тому ми
long-awaited
чекаємо на цих
result. That's why
поважних
we are
гостей.
waiting for
А
those
щодо
guests. And
приїзду,
speaking on the arrival,
поїздки після
or
цього
let's
міністра
say
оборони
the
сказав
visit
до
of the
Німеччини,
Secretary of
ми
Defense
також
to
очікуємо
Germany,
підтримки
we are
від
expecting
Сполучених
for this,
Штатів
the
в діалозі з
for the
Німеччиною,
United
щоб
States
вони
to support
також
us in
почали
their
нам
dialogue
поставляти
with
саме те,
Germany, so
що
that
у
the
них
Germany
є,
would
і
finally
що вони
start
зараз не
to supply
використовують,
us
тому
what
що
they
війна у
have.
нас.
And
І
they're
кожного
not
разу в
using
розмові
that
з
because the
Німеччиною
war is
ми
on the territory of
нагадуємо,
Ukraine.
що
And every
війна
time
у
in our
нас,
conversation
а у
with
вас є
Germany,
те, що вам
we
зараз не
tell them
потрібно,
that the
а нам
war is
потрібно
currently
більше.
in Ukraine, and you have what we need and you don't need.
Дякую. Давайте Уніан.
Thank you. Unyan, and then BBC, I guess. So, good evening. What would you say to Putin in the very beginning of your meeting? And how do you evaluate the work of Ukrainian ambassadors? If someone is slightly failing, when shall we have another wave of rotations, staff rotations in what countries? So the first part, what would I say to Putin? Okay. I think that my questions, the questions that or my statements that I would like to discuss, these would exclusively refer to something I'm interested in as a president of Ukraine, exclusively as a president of Ukraine. Territorial integrity, first and foremost. I would discuss the issues of territorial integrity. How shall Donbass live in future? I mean, Ukrainian Donbass. How shall Ukrainian Crimea live and exist? In which specific point can we negotiate upon it? Can we actually negotiate upon it? Can we agree upon it? The most important thing is that we raise the issue. And we hear, all of us do hear that Russian Federation starts responding. Not in a satisfactory way for us, but still this dialogue is initiated. So without any extra sentiments, the issues for discussion will be very specific. I'm not sure that very emotional, but you see how I do react and respond. Everything can happen, but the second part, just about the ambassadors. If someone, ambassadors, Ukrainian ambassadors, I mean, if someone is not that productive, or what exactly did you mean? You have to specify the question. Well, yes, we work with ambassadors, of course, and today ambassadors have a very clear task, and assessing their work today is very simple, as simple as can be. Their task number one is the weapon supply, the armament supply, and we will evaluate their results and performance after the war is over. We will give the grade. If someone is not able to show the result, we have such people, yes, it's true, it's a war. Nobody gives a second chance, because we are at the state of warfare. That's how we assess their performance, that's it. Okay, we have BBC, please. Left part of the hall.
Considering we've got Antonio Guterres, the United Nations Secretary General, coming to Russia and then here. Realistically, what would you hope to see come out of his meeting with President Putin? And does Russia's role in the Security Council essentially render the United Nations useless in this regard?
Ну, в принципі, ми публічні меседжі вже говорили з цього
приводу. Well, the public messages, we already presented it, we've talked about it. As long as we have the war, they can't be a member of the Security Council, nothing to talk about. That's clear. I gave you the details today. I think it's a mistake to go first to Russia and only then to Ukraine. It's just wrong. Give us messages from Russia. What is the purpose? The logic is, this is the logic. It's like...
що хтось неоднозначно ставиться, хто є агресором в цій війні. І саме це підкреслює. Тут же не питання, що спочатку до нас, потім до Росії. Не в цьому питання. В цій черзі ніякої справедливості немає.
Justice in this queue, in this line. There's no logic. We need to add logic to this recipe. What is the logic? It's simple. If you want to finish a war, if you want to bring it to an end, you must clearly know what's happening. Come and see what's happening. What he will see in Russia, no dead bodies in Kutuzovsky Avenue. What he wants to see there first. A person of that status, I'm not entitled to actually affect him, to influence him in any way, in his position, unfortunately. But it seems to me it's purely logical first to go to Ukraine, see the people, see everything they did, I mean the Russians, the consequences of the occupation, of the hostilities, and with that experience, with that baggage, to go to Russian Federation, to visit Putin, and actually with that kind of experience to formulate a message with this experience and express yourself and talk to Russia. Then you can ask questions, I guess. UN Secretary General can ask like the highest level questions. This is a top leader, a top position. Ask questions, look for solutions. How can he avoid talking to what to offer? What to offer then if he doesn't talk to us first? It's just, it's illogical. It's pure absence of logic. But who knows? People have like a lot of experience. Maybe they know better. We'll see. Thank you, colleagues. It's been 2 hours of communication. We're about to come to an end. We have to respect the curfew. Gazeta Wyborcza, the central part, the left flank, and then answer. And then we'll see, okay? So tomorrow we have Easter, and the Easter will be celebrated by Ukrainians not only in their country, in occupied territories, unfortunately. People even abroad. There are so many Ukrainians abroad. Of course, Ukrainians, just like all other normal people in the world, they expect for the war to finish. What can you tell them or promise, maybe? Can you just do it? I prepared a big speech to my country, specifically for Easter, an Easter speech to my citizens, to citizens I do respect, of the state I love so much, and you can't even understand the scope of my love. So I truly want to have peace, like any human being. I want to wish them, all of them, to stay healthy, to stay safe. I want them to have some ordinary things, finally, like family, happiness, joy. I never thought I would say this, you know, what we previously said. We used to say, like, wishing some health or wishing our grannies and grandpas to stay safe and stay healthy because they are already old and to live a long life. I never thought I can wish to have a long life to children, to toddlers because of the war. I wish everyone, infants, toddlers, adults, teenagers, please, people, save your children if you can. Keep them alive and safe. As a president, Fortunately or unfortunately, I can't say. I share the pain of each woman and each man. Everyone who unfortunately lost their children, I can understand this feeling. As a father. An answer, please, please. In the center.
ANSA Italian News Agency. Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi is planning to come to Kiev in the next days. What do you expect from him and from the Italian government? Thank you.
Дуже дякую.
Thank you.
Останнім часом у нас дійсно Італія приєдналась до антивоєнної коаліції. Я відчуваю потужну підтримку з боку прем'єр-міністра Драгі. Я йому вдячний. Змінились відносини в такий складний момент між Україною і Італією. Вони були прекрасні, а зараз вони предметні. Італія нас підтримує політично і підтримує озброєння. Не боїться про це говорити. Я вдячний Італії, вдячний італійському народу, вдячний прем'єр-міністру і це правда. Ми будемо чекати на прем'єр-міністра Драгі в Україні. Його очікує підтримка українського суспільства. Я думаю, для нього це важливо. Я вважаю, що такий це не перший прем'єр-міністр, якого я бачив в Італії, з яким я зустрічався. Я думаю, що історичним надлом в позитивному сенсі цього слова між нашими державами. Італія на рівні не тільки людей. Люди давно обрали підтримку України. Italia
always supported us, I mean the citizens, but at the level of government, we wanted to have the support. Italian government in this specific conflict, in this war between Russia and Ukraine, Italy picked our side, and I'm truly grateful for it, for this very clear, for this definite position. And, okay, let's have the last question. Terka, Ukraine, please. Left. This will be the last question. Thank you, colleagues. Mr. President, tomorrow we'll have 2 months from the beginning of the full-scale invasion. We woke up on February 24th from the explosions. We lived in shelters, and people lived here in the subway. And today we have the opportunity to have the press conference. What do we need to do? What do we need to get from our international partners to have a press conference in Mariupol? Or in any other city in eastern Ukraine or southern Ukraine or in Kherson, wherever. Thank you. Thank you. I want to tell you, frankly, Ukraine already did everything. We did everything we could. This is my opinion. We are so united. We are tied. We are the links of the chain. We just have to keep it in ourselves. Keep it by the end of the war. Save it. And keep it after the war. We are like one body right now, you know? Breathing, living body. The word power or government or president, nobody actually responds negatively to these words. No negative connotations. I'm so proud of being a leader of a state. I consider this to be a great victory. And our great weapon, the strongest weapon, uniting the power, the forces of military, special service officers, National Guard, State Border Guard, who were the first to respond, the communication officers who were the first to take the missiles. You know, those missiles flew from Belarus, and I'm so proud. I'm so proud of our defenders. They are so different. Local authorities. Imagine yourself loving your mayor, loving your local council. What was the level of support when people came to local elections to actually vote for MPs? They simply ignored it, you know, as we had it. Now we have this, I don't know, people are merging into one body. This is weapon number one. And Ukraine did it. We did it. Due to various reasons. And various heroes of this process we have. So many heroes with different faces, different eyes. The second weapon. The media weapon.
медійного, інформаційного ресурсу,
the media information resource, it became a very powerful, strong weapon. And I think that today, this is truly the second power. This is definitely the power.
В нашій відсічі і відстоюванні
That is
наших
how we
інтересів.
can oppose the aggressor. We stand for our
Медійна
interests. We
компанія.
advocate for ourselves.
Я беру
A
як
powerful media
всередині,
campaign.
що також вплинуло сильно на об'єднання
What
нашої
actually
держави,
helped us to merge,
так
to
і
unite.
зовні. Всі
Internally and
наші
externally,
звернення, наші
all our
журналісти,
requests,
журналісти
our
західні,
journalists' announcements,
західних країн,
foreign
яким
journalists,
я
journalists
хочу
of
дуже
Western
сильно
countries. I'm
подякувати,
so
тому що у
grateful to
нас
you all
своя
because
армія,
we have our
але
own
це те
army.
саме, що
But,
Збройні
you know,
сили. У нас
it's like
армія,
the
але
second army that
протистояти
we have.
Росії,
We can
нашої армії
oppose
журналістів,
Russia.
інформаційній політиці Росії також неможливо.
We
Мільярди,
can't
їх дуже
oppose Russia
багато.
only
І ми показали, що
with
це
the help of our
і це
journalists, but with
неймовірно і
millions of
можливо,
foreign journalists. We
об'єднавшись
showed that this was
з вами,
possible.
шановні присутні
We united
журналісти,
with all of you
з
sitting
інших
here today and
держав.
your
І саме
colleagues
ви
from other
привезли
states.
і везете
You
цю правду.
bring the truth
як
to your people.
напередодні Пасхи, як слово Христа.
Yes, it's like
як ви апостоли
it's
цієї
the Easter
правди.
Eve.
І
You
це
are like
правда.
the
Це чесність.
you are
І ми не
like
просимо
the
вас говорити,
Christ's,
що ви любите Україну. Ми просимо, і
supporters, you
що
are the Christ followers.
Україна
You bring his
воює,
word to
і що
people.
Росія сюди
You
прийшла
tell
зі своїми
about Russia, about its
планами
aggression, about
тиранії,
its plans,
загарбницьким
about its
планом. Ви
tyranny,
самі
about
бачите це.
its
І ви все відчуваєте,
monstrous
і тому ми вас
hostilities. You
просимо
feel it, you
нести
see
тільки
it. That's
те,
why
що
we ask
ви
you to
завдяки
bring
рівню
only
свого
something that
професіоналізму
you know.
можете
You as
принести
professionals, you can
правду.
bring
І
the
це і є
truth to
друге
people.
велике
This
об'єднання.
is a big,
Велике об'єднання. Ми зі свого боку
this is a big
робили
power
все,
that gives us
щоб
unity as well.
політично
We,
об'єднати країни
as government, we
Європейського
as
Союзу.
political
Ми
leaders, we did
звертались
everything
і
to
в парламентах,
get the
ви це
support of
знаєте,
European
і
countries.
по-різному, і
We
воювали,
actually,
і
we
іноді,
talked to governments. We
іноді
talked. We had another
може мене
front line
вибачить
at the political level. Maybe
хтось
someone
із
will
країн
actually apologize
європейських.
me from
Іноді, да, поводили
European
себе
countries. Sometimes
нахабно,
we
але
were
зрозумійте,
insolent, but try to
через те, що ми
understand us.
воюємо,
We
і
are
наші люди гинуть.
at the state of
По-іншому не
war.
можемо.
My people
Днів
are dying.
мало, часу мало.
We don't have
Щоденно
time. We
вмирають
don't have
оці
minutes, days and
трьохмісячні
years.
діти.
We
І
have
тому
3-month-old
і я так себе
children
поводжу.
dying. That's
І
why I
тому,
behave
тому
like
що
that.
так
That's why I'm
відчуваю.
insolent,
Тому
because I
що
feel it.
відчуваю, що так
Because I
швидше.
feel that
І що
this
так
will give me a
буде
fast
результат.
result,
І
and
це
this
третє
will give me a strong
об'єднання
result. This is
країн
the
Європейського
third front
Союзу.
line, the
Вони
third army we
ніколи
have.
так не були об'єднані.
European
Мені
states,
про це
they've never
сказали
been
всі.
so much united.
Всі. Остання
Everybody
наша
told me about
зустріч,
it. The last
Андрій Іванович, ви
meeting.
пам'ятаєте,
Андрій, you
коли ми
remember,
зустрілись
when we actually met,
з прем'єрами Іспанії,
the prime ministers of Spain and,
прем'єркою
the prime minister of
Данії,
Denmark. Yes,
прем'єркою Данії. Ми зустрілись, вони сказали, що
we met
ми
them, and
ніколи
they said, we
ніколи цього не відчували.
had that feeling
Нам не
before.
можна втратити
We
таке
can't
об'єднання.
lose.
І вони мені
We can't
дякували,
lose it.
хоча
We
це
can't- we
вдячність
can't lose
всім
it.
нам,
And they were
всьому нашому
grateful to us,
народу.
but this
Вони
is the gratitude
дякували,
to all of us, to all
що
Ukrainian, to all
ніколи
the people.
Євросоюз не
They
був
were-
таким
they were grateful
об'єднаним
for this feeling of
заради
unity.
такої справжньої
European
цілі,
Union was never
заради
that
тих
united at
цінностей.
such a level
Ми
to
завжди
protect
вони
the
говорили
values.
про ці
We
цінності.
always
Але ми
spoke about
зараз
those values,
наживо
but right now,
відчуваємо це.
these are
Ми
the
розуміємо,
values
за
that
що
we
ви
fight for. We
боретесь.
understand,
Ми
you understand that
хочемо
you fight for.
допомогти. Тому
With
це
us, we
третє
wanna help
об'єднання, політичне,
you
потужне об'єднання,
to bring this
що
truth.
веде
This
до
is the
перемоги.
unity that
До
brings us to
перемоги. Не
victory.
хочу вам говорити,
I don't want to
не
tell
дай
you.
Боже, потім образяться, скажуть, що це
Okay,
було
you'll get
особисто.
offended
Якийсь
and,
прем'єр-міністр,
try
який,
to,
да,
you'll
прем'єр-міністр
feel
мені
this is like
сказав,
kind of this is too
завдяки
personal.
Україні я зрозумів
One of the prime
зміст
ministers
НАТО.
just told me that thanks to Ukraine, I
Для
understood what
чого
NATO
цей альянс
is about,
і
what the alliance is
яким він
about.
повинен бути. І
I got that message.
завдання
And
цьому
how should it look like?
альянсу.
The task for the
І
alliance,
чи спроможен альянс об'єднатися
if it's
швидко
capable
і
of
протистояти агресії
actually responding
будь-якій.
quickly to any kind of aggression.
Тому Україна
That is why
багато що
Ukraine,
зробила.
it did so
Багато
much.
що
It did
зробила
so much. It did unbelievably many things, many things to unite the world. And not only the weapon is there. We have the unity, but the weapon. That's what we need. Yes. And we're about to have a religious holiday at this holy land of Kiev, Rus, where the Orthodox Christianity was actually born so many centuries ago. Because this is the place right now. Kiev is the place where the Orthodox Christianity was born. Russia says something like, no, Moscow was there. We know where it came from. We know where the roots are.
за те, що ми є першими. Але ми боремось за існування цієї історії.
For
І
existence
тому
of our
боротись за
history, for
існування,
existence itself, for
незважаючи
our
на
own
те, що ми
existence.
боремось за мир,
We fight
я
for peace.
повинен це назвати.
I just have to
Боротись
say
за
it.
мир ми
We fight for
повинні з
peace.
потужною зброєю.
But we
І
have
це
to fight for peace not just with the word
об'єднання,
and truth, but
яке
with
нам
weapon.
потрібно.
This is the last
Тут
piece
всім
of the puzzle
країнам
that we have to
треба
get.
стати,
All
вже
countries have to stand
об'єднатися.
up,
Вже це
being
вийшло.
united. We are united already. We all
Стати
are united.
сміливими.
Please become.
І
Don't lose your courage. Be
сміливими
brave. Be
людьми
brave.
і
Be
сміливими
the brave
лідерами.
people. Be the brave
І
leaders.
не тільки заради
And not
нас,
just for
не
us,
тільки заради
not
нашої
just for
перемоги,
our victory,
а заради себе, тому
but
що
for you,
ваші
for yourselves,
суспільства,
because your
ваші
communities, your
люди і
societies, your
народи
nations, your
чекають
people,
саме
they
таких лідерів,
wait for such leaders
саме
to
таких.
arise.
І вже після
They
нас,
wait for it. And
в
after
гарному
us,
сенсі,
well, after us in
ми
a
не
good sense,
прощаємось.
we are not saying
Я
goodbye
маю на
now.
увазі,
I mean,
після цієї війни
after this
ви
war,
побачите,
you will
що
see
ваші суспільства
that your
змінять вас.
societies, your nations will change
Всі ви
you.
будете сміливими
You will be
і будете
brave.
захищати
You will
свої
be
держави
ready to
так
defend
само
your states,
потужно, як
just like we do, with the
підтримуєте
same
нас. Ми в це
fierce motivation
віримо.
that we have today. By supporting us,
Шановні
thank you. We truly believe in
журналісти,
that.
не на
Thank you,
всі
ladies
питання
and gentlemen.
змогли відповісти.
Unfortunately, I didn't
Але
have
ви
time for all the
сказали
questions, but
непогану пропозицію.
you had a very good offer.
Зустрінемось, коли
Let's
звільнимо
meet
Маріуполь.
in Mariupol
Тож
when we free
ми
it.
продовжимо.
So
Я думаю,
we
скоро.
will continue, and I hope it will happen soon.
Дякую, шановні колеги.